Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And when you go to apply and they ask you, how did you hear about Podgo? Make sure you tell them that the Vault Classic Music Review sent you.
It's Macy's July 4th sale with an extra 20% off with your Macy's card or coupon. That's on top of great deals like 25 to 50% off summer tanks, tees, and more for everyone. And don't miss other great ways to save during our lowest prices of the season. 20 to 65% off furniture, mattresses, and rugs. And 40% off women's shoes during the great sandal sale. Plus, Star Rewards members can earn even faster during Star Money Bonus Days. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
Welcome to the Vault Podcast, classic music reviews, presented by IV Creative. Now, here's your hosts, B. Cox and the crew.
Greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Vault Podcast, classic music reviews, presented by IV Creative. It's a perspective of the classics from a fresh point of view. We appreciate you for taking some time and lending your ears to our perspective. You could be anywhere listening to anything, but you're right here with us, so we thank you. With you today is yours truly, B. Cox, and with me I have my boy in the place to be, always, J.O. here joining me as we chop it up always over the classics. Jay, thank you once again for joining us, my brother, as we head into this post-Independence Day weekend. Hope that y'all enjoyed y'all holiday, wherever y'all were, of course, so we're going to, of course, chop it up again. Big shout out to all of the listeners stateside and worldwide for showing support. Y'all have really showed out on these last two episodes that we've done in reviews with Nocturnal and Reasonable Doubt. And we got another one going up, but we got a loaded schedule coming up. So we appreciate y'all for sticking with us and continuing to tune in. We got much, much more lined up for the rest of this summer and throughout 2021 as well. Like we always say here on The Vault, our motto is hashtag open the vault. Hashtag nothing but the classics. And today, Jay, it's a recurring theme because we're going back to 1996 today. And considering the time, it's one of a couple of albums that we'll be covering here on The Vault. But the one that we did last week was, I say, a seminal album and an important album in the year and then also for the 90s. This one is also one as well. Now, of course, what are we going back to again? We're going to go back to 1996 and July 2nd. To the second studio album by Nas, It Was Written, released on Columbia Records. Of course, this was the follow-up to Nas's album, Illmatic, which came out in 1994, the critically acclaimed and much ballyhooed Illmatic, which, of course, many people considered among the best hip-hop albums of all time. Runtime of 58 minutes and 29 seconds on Columbia Records. The producers on this, executive produced by Steve Stout, but the associate producers, DJ Premier, Havoc, Poke and Tone, the Trackmasters, Rashad Smith, LES, the Live Squad, and an appearance by Dr. Dre, who produced the track on this as well. 3 singles on It Was Written: If I Ruled the World, which came out in June 4th of that year, Street Dreams, which came out on October 22nd, and The Message, which was released on February 3rd, 97. This, again, was the follow-up to Illmatic, Jay. It Was Written, the album.
Good times.
Good times. And definitely, if you want to talk about one of the more polarizing albums amongst fan bases in hip-hop, this definitely would be at the top of the list. Because the attitude and also the perception of this album has changed greatly. We talked about this last week with Reasonable Doubt. How we feel as though it went from being a dope album to being incredibly dope to being damn near flawless to being a classic within the 25 years that since its release. This one has probably changed about the same, but it still is very polarizing in regards to who you talk to about this album. Some people you talk to think it's really, really good. Some people you talk to will say that it's okay, it's good, and some will say that it's actually, compared to its predecessor, is whack. But, of course, I think this is one of the biggest things that this album suffers from is the fact that it followed up an album like Illmatic, and I think that's why there's such a polarizing reaction to this album when it came out. One of the biggest perceptions that we had is that a lot, and I read this in a lot of actual articles and like some websites and reviews back then, that there were some hip-hop journalists and people who were covering that loved Illmatic that hated this joint. And I'm talking about reputable people. I read on rap reviews, read some stuff with Davey D. Other people were like, you know, they thought that this joint had its bright spots, but they definitely were disappointed in it, which I think that will probably feel, as far as the polarizing reaction, is that some people were disappointed on it. I told you before we came on air, something that me and another user on Twitter had a back and forth with this guy who tried to tell us that, you know, we were trying to rewrite history on this album, and I don't think that we were. I think that at best you can say that it's a polarizing reaction to this album without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that assessment. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, Illmatic was its own thing, and this is its own thing, but like I say, it's rewriting history. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there are other Nas albums I could go to as far as which I say did not make the mark, but this wouldn't be one of them in my assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this album, you know, had a tough act to follow. And then also included with this was the fact that a lot of the producers that were a part of Illmatic were not a part of this. You see DJ Premier on this yet, but there was no Pete Rock. There was no Q-Tip. LES also appears on this as well, but the majority of the production was handled by the Trackmasters. And a lot of people also had a problem with that as well. But again, I think a part of that is being able to follow up Illmatic, which is one of the best produced albums in hip-hop history. The Trackmasters at that particular time, they weren't, I don't think, particularly well known. Talking about the caliber of producers from that, and then, you know, not on the Trackmasters whatsoever, but I think some people were expecting a repeat of the same producer skill set, Large Professor, you know, being included in that as well. So, well, let's go back to it. You know, we're in the same wheelhouse. We just talked about Reasonable Doubt. These came out a week apart from each other. So this coming out on July 2nd, Reasonable Doubt on June 25th. So let's go back, Jay, 96. And it was written... Give me your initial reaction upon listening to it when you first listened to the album, and then, of course, how your opinion has changed, if it has, during this 25 years since it came out.
The other reviews, like last week, you know what I mean? Like, 96 was just such a magical time as far as hip-hop. So, like, you know, we were kind of already, like, you know, inundated as far as, like, you know, like, with other dope releases that had come out. So by the time It Was Written came out, it just, like, went along and flowed within that consistency of dopeness.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing I don't want to say Nas caved in this respect, but, like, going back to Illmatic, one thing I think people did complain about was, like, it was only 10 tracks. You know what I'm saying? Like, and, I mean, he pretty much had people acting like lyrical musical fiends, for lack of a better term. Like, they really wanted more. So this go around, you know, he put some more tracks on. I think it's about 14, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But, yeah, as far as, like, what I heard back then, I mean, I was impressed with it. And now, listening to it now, I mean, Nas being a legend, and a lot of stuff that was out back then is like Shakespearean as by today's standards. So
yeah,
I mean, it's definitely held up, aged well. So you know what I mean, like my appreciation for it, like really just like, you know, just increased for it. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it just and also just takes back that 96 dopeness that was just like consistent throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just before I get into my reaction, sort of what helped to change this, because some people I think also criticize the fact that the tone in Illmatic was definitely a lot more street. It was based on, you know, his beginnings in Queensbridge, being a youth growing up from there, the stuff he had seen in the streets, being around in the hood, and it seemed a lot more, some people said it was organic. He definitely changed his tone because his lyrics were a little bit, you know, he definitely took a bit of a more of a tone. Some people say, of course, it was more mafioso and gangster themes, you know, more mob influenced and everything else. And some people, I think that it kind of got away from what they call like that underground feel that Illmatic had, that, you know, the underground loved so much. And this was definitely more commercial. But if anyone read Questlove's book, which, by the way, if you haven't read The Momenta Blues, The World According to Questlove, it's an excellent book, and any hip-hop or music lover really should read the book. There was a section when he talked about Nas, the infamous chapter that he had about the 95 Source Awards from a neutral perspective of all the stuff that happened at the infamous 95 Source Awards. And he was saying that basically while everyone was focused on what was going on with Biggie and with Death Row being there with Suge and the undertones of all this, the Coastal War, and not even that, but like the beef between Bad Boy and Death Row. And then after that, what you had was Questlove talking about him being there and Nas sort of being in all this. Now, mind you, Biggie won Rapper of the Year. Ready to Die won Best Rap Album. Outkast won Best New Artist. All things that Nas was up for that he didn't win. And what Questlove said about Nas was this. Nas's body language that day told the whole story of where we were about to go. The more he got ignored from Illmatic, I literally saw his body melt in his seat, almost like he was ashamed. He just looked so defeated. I was like, yo, he's not going to be the same after this shit. None of us were the same after that day. I felt like the true underground lost its oxygen that night. I agree. I definitely agree. I do think that it didn't necessarily begin with that, but I think if it solidified the fact that he was going to go a different way in a different direction to Illmatic, that pretty much solidified it. Because you had about an album that was as flawless as an album could be, and he still didn't get any recognition for it, So I think that's part of what led to this direction for this album. It's perfectly summed up. But where I was, now I told you last week that I bought these and Reasonable Doubt on the same day. I bought this on tape and I bought Reasonable Doubt on CD. This was my soundtrack for most of that summer of '96. I was running summer track. I was cutting grass and everything to be able to make money at my dad's apartment building in Northeast. And so this was my soundtrack, those two albums. This in particular, because I was such a fan of Illmatic though, and because I was a big Nas fan, is really what helped drive my soundtrack for the rest of that summer. I definitely noticed that Nas was different. You could tell that by listening to even The Infamous and listening to Only Built for Cuban Links off those guest spots. He sounded different, but it wasn't a bad different. I kind of felt like he had sort of switched up not even switched up his flow. While his demeanor may have changed up, I kind of felt like his flow had kind of advanced, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Like I felt like even more so, the lyrics were still poetic. It's Nas, but I felt like he had almost like mastered the delivery. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like the delivery was even better than it was in Illmatic, and it sort of moved forward with the times. I knew that the production we were getting on this was not the same production that we were going to get from what we got on Illmatic, but I thought it was fine for the most part. And I stayed with this on steady rotation with a lot of different other albums that came out in '96, and it stayed with me for quite some time. And I was kind of miffed when I talked to some people and also read on the internet and read some magazines that such the variance of a reaction between what people thought about this album. And I was like, how can anybody ever think that this album was some shit? Like, I don't get it. Like, what album are you listening to? Yeah, it's more mafioso, it's more gangster, it's more commercial. But if for what the reason why you love Nas, and the reason why all of us love Nas is because he's a lyrical mastermind, right? Definitely one of the top 5 talent MCs out there as far as when it comes to his lyrical talent. How could you say that this is whack? I just don't get it.
I don't get it. People just, unless they just stuck back then. And granted, '94 was a tough year too as far as hip hop.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Just going back, like his reaction to at the awards or whatever. Like, it's just something to consider as far as like I don't think he did right to be embarrassed. Because it was dope. It's just '94 was a tough time too. Like
it was tough. Yeah,
it was like tough. Even with West Coast still pretty much running the show, but still kind of like shifting back east as far as like everything like Biggie, Wu-Tang, you know what I mean? Like pretty much like people like Skills running like the freestyles on Stretch Armstrong, Barbito,
J. Rule, it's like a lot of different things coming out, exactly. And then the South started to emerge too, because Outkast won Best New Artist, and they were starting to kick down the door to what the hell we would have, and later on in the '90s into the 2000s, where the South was running things, So.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest thing that I didn't like was the fact that people said that Nas sold out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you sold out. Like, what does that even mean? You sold out. Like, what? I think like we use that. I think in our community we use that the whole sellout moniker a lot to people, and people don't even realize understand exactly what a sellout actually is. But I feel like we overuse that way too much, man. And so that bothered me because I'm like, yo, he didn't sell out. Like, come on, man. Like
that and calling somebody a hater or a player hater.
That and calling calling somebody a hater. Yes, goodness. And then within a couple of years of this, that term would definitely be played out, if you know what I'm talking about. Because it seemed like once Diddy started talking about people and haters and stuff like that, all of a sudden it's like everybody in hip hop was using hater to describe somebody, man. So anyway, so this joint, man, I thought it was pretty dope. I thought it was exceptionally dope lyrically because I felt as though the tone on this, like his storytelling, like this is to me where I really think he stepped up his game as a storyteller. Like, I mean, you had One Love and you had the story that he told on Illmatic, but I felt like he was really starting to paint a picture. I mean, a lot of it was a fiction, yeah, but it seemed just like the way you're watching a movie seemed like the shit was real. Like you were watching the shit happen. And we'll get into some of those tracks later. So we'll actually get into that now, man. The highlights or favorites, whatever you have, Jay. Run down what your highlights and favorites are, and, you know, just let me know what you think about them. And lowlights if you have any, obviously, as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely the message. Mm-hmm. Like, watch them niggas. Nas is coming. Affirmative action. The highlights, of course, we're talking about.
Okay.
And Lord knows I gave you power. Like, I could talk about, like, just the impact of that song. I mean, I don't want to say it just yet, but
man, we could do a podcast. Yeah, we could do a podcast on that song alone.
Right. Yeah, live nigga rap and that's I don't know if I said Taken in Blood, but like yeah, those joints low lights. I don't want to say it's a low light, but with like if I ruled the world of street dreams, because I mean I'll say it in the context like, you know, these are the ones I hear so much I skip past them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
you hear it a lot.
Yeah, like I'll say it like this, like that was one thing. I mean, I guess some people might knock Nas for, but I mean, Trackmasters, you know, it's a good formula for him as far as like those radio-friendly joints to get his album play and everything like that. So
yeah,
I mean, good songs, but like these are ones I kind of skip past. But okay, and the other lowlights. I mean, I know I said it's a highlight, but I'm going to also say a low light part on it. But I would have to go back to affirmative action.
Okay.
Reason being,
okay.
Reason being, because this joint came out in '96, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 25 years ago, like that equation that Foxy Brown spit on the energy just did not add up at all, bro.
Oh,
like,
yeah, you talk about the math shit.
I'm not saying math was my strongest subject, but I'm pretty good at arithmetic. That just not add up. You know?
Didn't
like,
add up, right.
Hold up, bro. Like, because I remember she was like, 32 raw, chopped to half, 16, double times 3, we got 48, which means a whole lot of cream. Like, what happened with the other 16? Like, I'm really sitting there trying to figure this shit out. Like, bro, what up, man? Like, especially talking about dope. So
yeah, exactly. True. Nah, I hear you. Yeah, I know. It is like people trying to sit there and go through the math. But yeah, I hear you, man. My highlights on here, the message to start out. Like, first of all, if I can sort of get out there, I thought the intro was kind of silly, especially the whole slave thing. Like, I don't know what they were thinking about. Like, who at Columbia thought that would be a good idea? But that was a little silly. Like, come on, dog, y'all could do better than this. Like, I mean, like,
I didn't think it was necessary.
You know, it wasn't necessary. But the message coming out of the break, and within the first 8 bars, dissing Tupac, Biggie, and Jay-Z. Well, at least within the first 10 bars.
Right.
He dissed all 3 of them, you know, and all 3 of them took exception to that, especially Biggie. Like, you know, Biggie made at least half of kicking the door about Nas. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then we know what Pac did. I mean, Pac on Against All Odds came for Nas's neck, which is crazy because that wasn't even supposed to happen because supposedly a week before Pac died, him and Nas saw each other in New York and had made plans to talk in Vegas when he went out there for the fight. Obviously, that didn't happen. But the message, that beat, and then Nas coming out like off the break, just guns blazing. I gave you power. Like, this is the only Primo produced track, but my goodness. And it's like not the most complicated Primo beat, but it's just
It's still a Primo beat.
So Primo in its simplicity.
I told you, man, his production just makes me mad. He's so good.
That he's so good, right?
It's like the compare. It's like back in high school, like, you know, if it was like a sports team or something like that, you was on the journey. It was like somebody you knew you couldn't compete against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like, man, Chef had been graduate, so I could run this shit.
I can run this shit, man. Like, damn, like shit. Yeah,
but Primo's still going strong, bro. So like,
exactly, like,
and he is my top. He's in my top 3 too. Side note, so
of course, absolutely. Nah, I definitely get that.
It's Macy's July 4th sale with an extra 20% off with your Macy's card or coupon. That's on top of great deals like 25 to 50% off summer tanks, tees, and more for everyone. And don't miss other great ways to save during our lowest prices of the season. 20 to 65% off furniture, mattresses, and rugs. And 40% off women's shoes during the great sandal sale. Plus, Star Rewards members can earn even faster during Star Money bonus days. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
And then the perspective of talking about like he was an old Desert Eagle, like, yo, right. I mean, come on, bro. And then describing other guns he was with, the old tech, you know what I'm saying? Hadn't been fired in years and everything.
Falling apart because of his murder career.
Falling apart because of his murder career. I mean, yeah, so Take It in Blood, produced by the Live Squad, which, by the way, is another point of contention between Nas and Tupac. You know what I mean? Because the Live Squad and Pac had a falling out as well. Affirmative Action was a dope-ass posse cut. I think I played this to death when I first got the tape. The run really, for me, like from like 9 through like 13 is like really, really good. The setup with Havoc, that story about the setup, and then Suspect, shootouts, and then Live Nigga Rap with Prodigy, Havoc, and then Nas, like just, my goodness. And then the track that's on the tape that a lot of people haven't heard is Silent Murder. You know what I'm saying? That's another one of my highlights. That, to me, is a thing that I think, like, yo, why Columbia didn't include this on the CD boggles my mind. It really does. Boggles my mind. If I Ruled the World in Street Dreams, I'm cool with those too, man. I think that, you know, I think I definitely, like you said, if I do skip them, I skip them because I've heard them so much. But it's not because they're not good. If I were to talk about lowlights, though, I think after listening to it this past week, I understand why people don't really like Nas's Coming that much. One, I think the beat is okay. I've heard better Dre beats, but Nas's bars on that are some of his weakest bars on the album, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. And then some people have a lot of slander for Black Girl Lost, but I mean, you know, because I think a lot of folks put the whole thing about the Black Girl Lost, or does she owe you for ice? You know, I mean, right. But I thought it was cool. I mean, I don't really think about like some of the lowlights on here that some people have. Like a lot of people will talk about Nas Is Coming. Some people will talk about Watch Them Niggas, and some people will talk about Black Girl Lost. But I don't really see a huge problem with a lot of those. I mean, like, to me, I think if there's a low on this album, I would have to say, for me, it's probably after listening to it this past week, it's Nas Is Coming. Because I felt like it was a little rushed. You know, even Nas's flow seemed rushed in that song. You know, so, and I know that Dre had just left Death Row and he was starting to collaborate and reach out, you know, across coast and trying to collaborate with people he didn't collaborate with before. So I think if it would have been thought through a little bit more, I definitely would have been up for a Nas Dr. Dre collaboration. No doubt, you know, so. But no, man, it's just the storytelling on here, man. When you talk about I Gave You Power, you talk about the stories that he tells on the setup, on shootouts, just it's like I said, Nas sort of like took that where we started to get that opinion of him telling stories. It's like literally like you're watching like a great mob movie. That's when or a great gangster movie. Like that's when I think about the imagery of the lyrics and the song as it comes across and dances across my brain, those are the images that I'm sort of getting. And even now, even years later, I sit in awe and think about these lyrics, you know, how they stood out. Definitely how they stood out. I think that he was more of a polished MC, and while Illmatic may have been raw and it was sort of like him, like his raw talent on display, I think this was him a little bit more refined and well-rounded, and I felt like he was able to hit on so many of those different things that he didn't do on Illmatic. So now we get into notable quotables. So Jay, what you got, man?
I mean, all right, first couple bars off of the message that you ain't like you said how he was dissing and came out blazing like fake thug, no love. You getting the slug, see before gusto. You luck though, I didn't know till I was drunk though. You freak niggas played out, get fucked and ate out. Prostitutes her bitch, I got the gauge out. Like I was laughing at that see before gusto line.
Nah.
And, I'm trying to think what was the other joint I had, like, which is gonna be from I Gave You Power, just so you know what I mean.
Of course, okay.
Just a way he just started off the second verse. Always amid some shit. My abdomen is the clip that barrels my dick. Uncircumcised, pull my skin back and cock me. I bust off when they unlock me. Results of what happens when niggas shot me. I see niggas bleeding, running from me in fear. Stunningly tears fall down the eyes of these so-called tough guys for years. I've been using robberies, giving niggas heart to follow me, placing people in graves. Funerals made because I was sprayed. And I was laid on the shelf with a grenade, metal racked up tech with numbers on his chest that say 5209-3850. Harriet cereal to face, hoping one day police would keep place where he came from, pretty much the whole. I mean, you could spit the whole joint, but it was just that vivid,
vivid. This the imagery. This is
it showed up put like a movie in my mind when I first heard this shit,
including that third verse to me is when he talked about dude came in his temple throbbing, eyes red, grabbing him. It's on, You know, and the fact that he jammed and wouldn't let him fire the gun and everything, man. And then it's just like, then I grabbed it.
Held on, knowing niggas waiting in hell
for him, right? Yeah. Then I'm happy until I feel another nigga grab me. Damn. So my notable quotable comes from Shootouts, and it's from like that part of the first verse. He was just like, yo, release what's in me. Beside the Henny, its eyes have seen the plenty. Fiends get skinnier. The Queens was a Craig Jenny. Instead of diet plans, it's crack 200 grams. I pump a G-Pack. People for where the D's acting slow. Looking for Rambo. The cop who got grades back in the days. Chasing niggas through my project maze. That cop he got a desk with. You run behind niggas until you breathless. Every day he making 10 arrest shit. My niggas check this. I know the bitch he rest with. I even blessed it. 40-10 inspected. Already checked it, done this. Angle, you can see his gun. Peeped, he parked his Jeep at the back of the slum to check Tanisha. Fat ass real fly with the blonde Caesar. Fettuccine summer gear, she puts the two-seater. I heard she brag about the way he eat her. An Irish man, short and slim with a tan. They say he laced the Chiba. She do be looking weaker now. Teeth are foul, speaking loud, people style. In and out of every reefer cloud. Fat ass dissolving like cotton candy in the mouth to starving. Rock the same gear daily like a soldier in my squadron. I heard she let Jake investigate from a window cause she's an nympho. Fucking sucking dick and coughing up info. Then I went to set up her and the beast to get wet up. I know we vest up, we blazing from the neck up. You'll let me knock first. Soon as he opened, get your Glock burst. They had the chains on, son hit the lock first. We busted in, the cop jerk. Jungle popped one in his shirt. I grabbed the bitch by her tits. She tried to say she hurt. We saw the cameras, tape recorders, and the monitors. They on us. Nas, yo, we survived one from the 4-5. Pulled the shades down. They seen his last days now. There's no way now. We could be treated just like a slave now. 2 in the dome, he's laid down. Hey, yo, the bitch is saved now. She's lying in the snit's grave now. Like, I mean, yo, come on, man.
That's a full-on Blaze verse,
like,
man.
Yo, what the... Like, my man literally sat here and crafted the scene of a cop using a chick to spy on niggas in the hood, and they ran up in her apartment and killed both of them. Like, come on, dog. Like, come on, dog. How could you listen to shit like this and be like, this nigga took a step back? Like, come on, dog. Like, as good as Illmatic is, I don't even think a verse like this, like he was even capable of doing something like that back then. You know what I mean? Like, not to say that he wasn't as skilled. He definitely was. But I think that, like, the being well-rounded and being able to do some shit like this, like he incorporated even having his man's voice, just like Biggie did on Kimmy the Loot. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, bruh. Like, come on, bruh. Niggas. Oh, my goodness. So before we get into the verdict, I sort of wanted to talk a little bit about, we talk about like the reaction that this has, that I think that the reaction for this has gotten better, because I think if back in 96, there were a good percentage of the people that thought it was a solid album, but a disappointment, or some people who were thinking that it's whack. I even think overall the public, sort of like the way that we have in Reasonable Doubt, it's sort of increased. The perception has increased to where it's like people now almost universally acclaim this album, even with the whole Trackmasters things and it not being produced by Pete Rock and Large Professor and Q-Tip or whoever. I think really now it's like people have sort of like universally have been like, you know what? This shit was not really as bad as we thought it was. You know, I actually think it was a much, much better. As a matter of fact, depending on who you talk to, some people may feel a certain way about it. But I think that the perception has definitely improved, just like the way the Reasonable Doubt did. What do you say?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, like, yeah, because I mean, like I said, listen to it this past week. I mean, I definitely have a greater appreciation for it, and then. Like, I kind of tied this in, like, you know, what I was saying before as far as like, the impact of it. I mean,
yeah,
because honestly, and it goes back to what I said about I Gave You Power. Because if we didn't have that, I mean, even though I'll even take it before. Actually, I just put it in order, like, you know, without that, we wouldn't have had Me and My Girlfriend, you know what I'm saying, on a Machiavelli joint.
Right, because even Pop gave the inspiration.
Bonnie and Clyde, yeah. So, like, that just shows, like, you know, the influence that Nas had with that song.
Yeah, the impact. And we talk about, like, some of the impact and the influence that it has. Lupe has often said, Lupe Fiasco has said he think that it was written his favorite album, and it was his a primary source of his inspiration. Royce the 5'9" has said that this album is better than Illmatic. A lot of people talk about when you talk about that whole subgenre of mafioso rap, it definitely was, I think, pioneered partially by Cool G rap in the 80s and the early 90s, made popular by Raekwon again on Built Only for Cuban Links on the Purple tape. But then this album, I think as well, sort of got people sort of in that mind frame of, like, you know, you're referencing Goodfellas and referencing, like, you know, Scarface and Carlito's Way, which Reasonable Doubt also helped pioneer mafioso rap as well too, because he was talking that shit on there too. But I think almost even like this to me is, like I said, listening to these stories is like watching a mob movie. You know, that verse from Shootouts is like watching a mob or a gangster movie. You know what I'm saying? Can't tell me that you listened to that verse and then didn't literally picture them kicking down the girl's door, shooting the cop and shooting her, singing the monitors and the scanners and everything else up like you sing in the movie. You know, like, I think that we talk about, like, the legacy. This, to me, I think really helped to get into this whole subgenre mafioso rap. This continued when they did The Firm and everything else, and that album. And as many times as Nas fans will come out and say that he sold out or he went mainstream or you went pop or you went commercial, like, this album sold 2.5 million records. This is best-selling album still. So it's like, you know,
yeah, like,
come on, bro.
I don't even say it's like him selling out. I mean, it's one thing. I mean, just for the record, I mean, selling out, that's more so defines, like, you know, you sacrificing your personal beliefs for, like, financial gain. Like,
exactly.
You know, it'd be one thing if, like, you know, he was like, man, fuck mafioso rap and all the commercial sound and beats, and all of a sudden he was doing all that. All of a sudden, okay, yeah, that'd be selling out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, like, you know, trying to adjust your style to appeal to a wider audience and achieve longevity, that's just a smart move, business wise and, like, culture wise. You know what I'm saying? As far as I'm concerned,
it's funny that Nas got blasted for that, but Jay-Z got praised for that, even though Jay said dumb down on his audience and doubled his dollars. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, it's crazy, man. But I think the legacy of this is set, because I think you even talk about something like with the hip hop, like the rappers, you know what I'm saying, themselves talk about, like, some of the things I've seen on Twitter and on Instagram, the people that talk about something like, yo, this literally is Nas' other classic album. You know what I mean? And so I think that the industry now regards this much better than they did back then. And I mean, when I mean the industry as a whole, because I think they were divided as well on the quality of this album. But I think now it's more universally acclaimed, not just among the public, but among the industry as well. So now we get to the test, the final test, the test of time to see what kind of album it is. Is it a certified classic? It is a borderline classic, a classic just in its time, or not a classic? And then how we feel about it. 7 being that we don't feel as strong, and 10 that we feel as strong. So, Jay, what say you about It Was Written?
You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't gonna lie, I was like wrestling with it before, but I gave it another listen. But when I really, like, you know, analyze everything, I'm going certified classic, and I'm feeling 10 out of 10 on that one. So
yeah. Certified classic for me, 10 out of 10. This album actually helped inspire me to want to write rhymes. You know what I mean? And I think when you get an album that's so good that it makes you want to rap, like Illmatic, yeah, but at that age when I was 12 years old, I wasn't really think about rhyming. By the time I was heading into high school, I was ready to, like, explore being a rapper. And this album helped to make me want to rhyme because I marveled at Nas' lyrical excellence and how he told stories. And that's what I wanted to do. And you look at the legacy and influence, and I think that it's improved. I think folks understand and realize that we were a little bit too harsh on this. And while I do think there may be a couple of low spots on here, overall, I think he grew a lot as a rapper and as an artist. And I think that he became not just this underground MC that had crazy bars for days. He actually knew how to craft songs, you know? Right. Now, people can argue about whether he picked, him being able to pick beats and everything else. That's still up for debate. No debate about that because
and I'll just keep it a buck. I always say beat picking was not his strong suit.
Yeah.
I even said the good best form he could have is Trackmasters for the commercial joints and maybe like Primo and Pete Rock for the more street joints. You know what I mean? That would work in my opinion.
Exactly. So there we are. It was written 25 years ago this week, y'all. Please make sure y'all go check it out if you haven't. Everywhere where you can listen to music and get music. As a matter of fact, they've even released another deluxe issue of It Was Written, an expanded version that has been out there. So please make sure you go check that out and give this some love, man. I think we were way too harsh on this back in the day, some people, and I think that some of the public has come around to be able to give this the recognition that it truly deserves. And that is going to wrap up yet another edition of The Vault. Please make sure you are checking us out on our host on the Red Circle. You can also download, stream, and subscribe to The Vault Classic Music Reviews on any one of our streaming sources. If you go to any one of our social media pages in our bio in the link tree, you will get to all of our streaming sources and also all of our social media pages. Again, you can follow The Vault Classic Music Reviews on Instagram on @VaultCMR Podcast, on Twitter @Vault Classic, and on Facebook and YouTube, The Vault Classic Music Reviews Podcast. Search us there. Like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, interact with us on social media. Let us know what you're feeling. We do it here all for you. We appreciate the support, and if you have a friend, tell a friend, and make sure that that friend tells a friend. Always remember to keep your headphones on and your music loud, but not too loud. And as we close, we'd like to remind everyone to dream big, because dreams are the basis for creation. Always create, motivate, and elevate, because you were never destined or created to stay stationary in this life. And on that note, we say peace.
Thank you for listening and coming into The Vault. Please subscribe and follow us on Facebook at IV Creative and Instagram at IVECRE8.
It's Macy's July 4th sale with an extra 20% off with your Macy's card or coupon. That's on top of great deals like 25 to 50% off summer tanks, tees, and more for everyone. And don't miss other great ways to save during our lowest prices of the season. 20 to 65% off furniture, mattresses, and rugs. And 40% off women's shoes during the great sandal sale. Plus, Star Rewards members can earn even faster during Star Money Bonus Days. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.